All right, this is a little bit of a redundant slide, but it is horrifying to look at if you see this. Wildfire has been extremely destructive. I think the main thing that I just wanted to say in this is it's real. And our own fire marshal, Don Bullard, had a brother that was in Paradise when the fire happened. And he was at home, and they had with his wife and his son, and they had received this phone call stating that they had received that a PSPS, the public safety power shut off, was going to happen at around 4 a.m. And so he had to work the next day. So he woke up at about 5. Still no alert had gone out, or the power had not been shut off. So he woke up at 5. The power's still on. He's like, great, okay. So he got up and got ready and drove to Chico, which is about 45 minutes away from Paradise, to go to work. Then when his wife woke up a little bit later, she took their son to school at 8 o'clock, and then she drove to work, which she worked at Safeway. It was about 2 miles away from their home. And then about 8:30 is when she receives this mandatory evacuation. And so she's like, okay, I have to go get my son immediately, right? So she gets in her car, she's driving, there's no cell phone reception automatically. It's just pure chaos, right? So she goes, okay, she picks up her son. They go back into their neighborhood to go to their house so they could pack everything, pack their dogs, and then they can evacuate. As they're driving to their house, they are looking from side to side. They see roofs on fire, lawns on fire. There are embers just pouring down and raging. It looks like the apocalypse to them. They are horrified, right? They realize once they get to their house, they have literally no time at all. They grab their 3 dogs. That's it. That's all they could grab. And what was inside of their safe? They had a safe. So they grab whatever was in their safe, and they grab their dogs, and they get in their vehicle, and they head out, which their safe had some very important documents, along with like some rifles and some other items. And then as they're evacuating down the main roadway, which was Skyway, it was a double lane with like a double yellow center line. They realize like traffic is stopped, and they're just sitting there, and nobody is coming in the opposite direction. And they're just going, what is going on here, right? So they make this small moral decision, right? You think, okay, no, we're not allowed to go in that side of the road or anywhere because we're supposed to be going out of this way, right? But they go, you know what? It's life or death at this point. We're going to go out this way. So they go into the middle of the road, and they drive down the middle to evacuate. And she can hear people honking and screaming and yelling. And she's just, I have to evacuate, right? After a little while, the son turns around. He's looking, he realizes there's a caravan of vehicles following them. It's like, once one person does it, everybody goes, oh, we can do this, right? And I mean, yeah, realistically, yes, you're doing it for survival at this point. So,
well, yeah, there was a 2-lane bottleneck on a piece of road that could handle 5 lanes of traffic, and
yeah.
no one's driving into it. So,
yeah, and what's really unfortunate about that situation is they had planned and prepared. They had done evacuations, but they had done them in the opposite direction, and it was sad. So they owned 2 homes there. They lost both homes. They survived, obviously. When they went back, what they wanted to share when they were explaining to other people about the lessons they learned were, they had planned a lot. They had a safe, they had their documents, they were able to save their dogs, all this stuff. But there were some things that they didn't realize that they should have put some kind of coverage on, taking pictures of, which was, he did woodworking. So he had a lathe in the back in a shed that he did not document. So he wasn't reimbursed, some of the other items within the household. He said, you need to just go through with your phone, just explaining what you're looking at, what's in your house, to document exactly what you have, in every room. I mean, they were some of the fortunate ones, even though how can you say it's fortunate when they've lost basically everything? But I just want to impose to you that if this ever does happen, this is why it's crucially important to just be prepared and to leave in advance, as you can see how destructive these fires were. And I don't mean to be the Debbie Downer or to give the scare tactics of these stories, but that's all I have on this slide. We can move forward to the next one.
Well, I would just say that, preparedness is not just about being prepared so that you don't die and so that you don't suffer during the event. It's so that you can put your life back together afterwards. So you have some record of where everything was. A lot of people don't take the simple expediency of, say, taking one bill from each of your accounts, each of your credit card accounts, each of your bank accounts. Make a copy of that and put it in your car, put it someplace else so that if your home burns down, you can say, yeah, this is me, and I had these accounts before. Even though my passport, my driver's license, and everything burned up when I ran out of the house, I can establish that this is me. I've got a picture of it.
Yeah, and to that end too, we are going to go into preparedness. I'll just save it actually for that.
Yeah. The one thing I want to add on this screen before we do leave it is please take a look, especially in the upper left corner. How many of these properties were burned down to the foundation with green trees standing around them, and some not so green trees standing around them? And there's a common myth that forest fires, that wildfires travel through the treetops. That is not, they're finding out, the most dangerous way that it travels in our communities. The way it travels is embers that land on top of a roof that sadly is fairly flammable. And that's why you can't put in a new wood shake roof in Woodside, for instance, because they burn so easily. But most of the places that you're looking at that burn to the ground burned down because an ember landed on the roof, burned through a tiny little hole, and then it burned from the inside and lit the place next to it and so forth. And you end up with places like this where you have blocks of trees with residents burned to the ground in between. And that's it. I'll go on to the next one. And I will try to go on to the next one. There we go.
Okay, so we're going to talk about wildfire, that major threat. We already have been, but we're going to get into exactly defensible space, hardening your home, what you can do in terms of what's required, what is recommendations, making a plan in advance, right? Your go kit, and then evacuation, what that means, right? Right now, I've been getting questions every day about evacuation. So we can move forward to the next slide.
So there we go. Preparing your home, and by the way, this is still a big focus, but
wait, let's hold on 1 second. Can you pop that video up right there?
Oh yeah. Let's see our cloud of smoke video. Hello, show the cloud of smoke. Oh my gosh. Sure, show it in Chrome. I wish my other computer hadn't crashed. Hadn't crashed 2 minutes before the presentation.
It happened. This is our first run, so you can share that screen once it pops up.
Well, it looks like it's just...
a heads up to anyone, we are going to be providing a lot of resources, websites, PDF documents. If you go to the WPV-Ready .org website, we have a whole page dedicated to all the PDFs that we talk about in this presentation and the links, the important links. So you don't have to, we did that because we were finding we were printing so much stuff out and handing it to people. And yes, I actually am one of those people that likes to have a physical document in my hand, but this is a much easier way to access everything.
Let's see what we have here on this one. So getting ready outside. There are two basic places where you need to prepare for the fire. One is inside your home with your family, hardening your home and preparing the members of your home to know what to do in the case of a fire. And the other one is outside of your home. And how do you make it harder for fire to reach your home? And the basic way that you do it is that you think about it in zones. And there's a zone actually right 0 to 10 feet. They call it, I think it's zone 0. Selena, what's that? What do you guys call that now? The
Zone
zone 0? It's like the 0 to 5
0
feet.
to 5 feet.
Yeah, 0 to 5 feet. And basically what you're looking for in 0 to 5 feet around your house is you want to make sure that there's nothing burnable leaning up against your house, that you don't have a pile of pine needles that have gathered in a corner. Because wherever the wind blows a pile of pine needles or any other flammable thing that you didn't intentionally put there, well, that's right exactly where it's going to blow up an ember during a wildfire. So watch out for things right up against your house. And then, of course, you want to watch out for things. You don't want to stack wood against your house, nothing flammable. Watch for flammable things right up against your house. Watch for things like, geez, do I have flammable siding? There are siding materials these days that are absolutely indistinguishable from natural products. At least I can't, without getting right up close and knocking on it, I can't figure out if it's wood or some synthetic that is non-flammable. Think about over time little projects to replace any little thing right up against your house. Go around your house and play this game with yourself. If you had a little coal, if you're carrying around a coal, thank you, Selena, for this one. You got a metal tongs with a coal, and you're going to look for any place you can stick that coal that's going to set your house on fire. Well, if you can find any one place like that, that's where Mother Nature's going to stick a coal in a wildfire, and do something about it as soon as you can. The next thing that you really need to worry about is just what do you have growing within about 30 feet of your house? You don't want things that burn easily. You got junipers within about 30 feet of your house. Why? They're beautiful, yes, but when a mature juniper burns, it burns at over 1,000 degrees. I've done this experiment. You cannot stand near a juniper when it's burning, and so I cut away all the junipers that were near my house. In fact, I cut away all the junipers on my property. I used to have quite a big area out back, and quite a big area out front. It was kind of the go-to shrub back in the day, and suddenly I realized I'm just kind of sitting in the middle of a flammable sea, and so we got rid of them all. And the place actually looks better. And it takes a lot less water because the trees are nice and mature, and you raise those limbs up, you got a nice place to sit out in the yard now. Come over sometime and I'll show you. And then, of course, going out from about 30 feet to 70 feet, you want to worry about things like how close together are the trees? What's growing underneath the trees? Is it easy for a fire to get from the ground into the trees and to go from tree to tree? If you can take out one tree and eliminate 90% of that risk, if there's just one tree that's touching between 3 or 4 others, get rid of that one. That's not going to hurt anything. It's going to look good when it's opened up a little bit. Trust me. And those are the basics. Just basically walk around your property and go out beyond 100 feet too. If you've got several acres out there and you've got a lot of old dead brush, you got some old trees lying around, the trunk laying on the ground is not so much of a concern as that branch sticking up in the air with dead twigs all over it. Just do some dressing up. knock down those grasses that are getting brown, because those are the things that'll just race along the ground in a breeze and come knocking on your door. You just don't want them knocking on your door. And think like a flame. Just walk around and say, is there any place for me to live around here? If I'm a flame, would I be comfortable over there in that wood pile? How hard would it be for me to get from that wood pile over to the house? And then try to eliminate everything you find. And there's a lot of good material online, by the way, on the website, on our website, and on the CAL FIRE website. Fantastic material that'll take you through these things, huge checklists that you can just go through. You don't even have to think about it, just go through the checklist. And that's all I have to say on this one. Well, it's not all I have to say, but I should probably give it back to you.
So here we go. Thank you. Yeah. So we want to stress again that there is a big difference between what is required and what is recommended. There are certain things that are absolutely required within our fire district pertaining to fire code and wildland and the wildland urban interface, the WUI. But there are a ton of things that we just recommend you do to make your home more fire resilient. You know, this is what the fire marshal Don Bullard says. He says, you know, we make our homes weather resilient, right? Rain was resilient, wind resilient. We make them resilient to rodents, to bugs. But we still haven't figured out exactly how to make them resilient to fire. And we're doing this slowly by integrating such things as hardy board to build your house out of, having certain types of roofs, double pane windows, fire ember resistant vents. But as a whole, we are still trying to work towards this. Your role as a homeowner is part of this whole relationship that we have to make our whole community safe. So as each individual homeowner does their part, as a community, it raises our level of resilience. These are some of the things you can do. And now we just, in this presentation, it is the basics. We are not going to give you a whole list of all of these items. What we want to share with you is that the fire prevention division for Woodside Fire is amazing. They will come out and do a walk around of your property with you for free. And they will help you to make a plan to point out the things that you can work on to make your home more fire resilient. And if you are in the Woodside area, there is a matching fund program where they will match you up to, I believe it's $3,000 now.
$3,000. If you spend up $6,000 or more, they'll cover half of the first six. So they'll write you a check for $3,000, and they're pretty snappy about it too, I'll tell you.
Yeah, so you go in, it's a simple application. You have the fire district come out and do an inspection to tell you the kind of work you need to get done. You get it done, you get signed off. You can do it again the next year. So it's not a one-time thing. You can do it annually. The town has put more and more funds towards this because they realize it's a great program. As you can see in some of these pictures we have here, some of the obvious things that...
Let me mention, by the way,
yes.
that if you're familiar with this program from the past when it was called the Defensible Space Matching Fund, it is now called the Defensible Space and Home Hardening Matching Fund, because not only will they pay to like take down a dangerous tree or they helped me remove the junipers here. Turns out I needed a lot more than they were willing to.
Well, they covered, don't they cover vents now and
they cover vents,
shutoffs,
spark arresters, and gas shutoff, earthquake gas shutoff valves. They cover a lot of home hardening things now, and they're very happy to keep paying you to harden your home and make your property more defensible.
Yeah. So I apologize if you recognize any of these residences in here. These were actually photos that were taken by our previous fire marshal, Denise. And I have to admit, I have been to a presentation where I had a resident go, "That's my house."
Yeah.
And I was, oh no. But it's important to just say these things. We're not trying to call you out, throw you under the bus. It's just, sometimes it is just we needed to provide the information to you. So you just weren't aware of how much of a hazard it is to not maintain your roof line, to, if you live on a private road, to make sure that the road is maintained for access and evacuation, and that you just don't have a bunch of shrubs butting right up against your property.
Well, if this is your house, we'll come out and help.
Yeah.
We're not throwing you under the bus. I mean, we'll pull over and let you on the bus while we fix the house.
So like Chip said, embers are our number one threat, and they can travel so far and ignite homes so easily. And with the amount of synthetic material our homes are built with, they burn extremely hot and extremely fast. And the toxins that they're sending out into the atmosphere, it is bad. So we are trying to prevent that from happening. And the reason why we see that these trees are still standing is they're just not as dense as these households. The embers can travel through limbs. So yeah, the trees will be standing afterwards. These houses will burn hot and fast. You can go to the next slide. Thanks.
Yeah, and you know, the lovely eucalyptus that we're trying to get rid of so aggressively, there is still so much eucalyptus in our area, and eucalyptus is notorious for throwing embers into the air that can go for half-mile, a mile, sometimes more. And they've actually had that happen here, where a fire over on the west side of 280 would light a house on fire over in Emerald Hills. That happened a couple of years ago. So just be aware. So part of the home hardening is having a look at the ventilation of your attic space, also under your house, but most importantly, the attic space. Because what they're finding is that not only do a lot of houses ignite due to something landing on the roof and finding a little crack in there. So please make sure you have a non-flammable material, as non-flammable as possible, on the roof. But then also, fire tends to create its own little weather system, and you get winds. And when there's a fire in the area, you're going to get a hot blast with embers blowing along the ground and through the air at low levels. And this stuff will get sucked right into the vents on your eaves and any kind of an opening it can find into the underside of your house. Just the way air flows, as it's blowing across your house, it's going to create a suction and pull those embers aggressively up into your attic space. And so getting ember proof or ember resistant material on there is very important. I had this done on my home a couple of years ago. There were 20 something vents into the attic space. There are a couple of triangular spaces at the end that had custom openings, and we needed to go and get a sheet. You can get this stuff in 3-foot by 3-foot sheets as well. And what it is it's a fine mesh on one side with a metal honeycomb that's chemically treated on the back of it. And when an ember gets sucked up against it, that honeycomb material on the back actually closes off. And of course, you have to replace it later, and it creates a bit of an additional cleaning. You have to clean these things out a little more often because they get clogged up with dust and whatnot, easier than a normal eave soffit vent, but it's well worth it. And I have seen this material. I have put burning material on a piece of this stuff and then blasted on it with a hair dryer, and just to see what gets through. And nothing got through that concerned me. So I went ahead and put them on everything, every way you can get into my attic. Now is sealed with some of this material, and you can get it online. The best stuff I found, and the stuff I installed, and I just recently did another search and kind of looked at all the stuff that's out there. It seems that the people that are making the most reliable, highly rated stuff right now is called Vulcan Vents. There's some stuff called Brand Guard out there, which looks to me like Vulcan Vent that's been packaged a little bit nicer. But if you start out with Vulcan vents, which you can get at bestmaterials.com, I just found to be one of the better prices. I strongly urge you to do a little research on your own, because you know how these things go. In a few weeks, it's likely to be a better price someplace else. But have a look at it, and any handyman can install this material. It's not toxic, it's not dangerous, it just needs to be well sealed and cover every vent. What else? Windows, tempered dual pane windows. If you have, for instance, a pine tree, let's say you got a 30-foot tall pine tree, 20 feet outside your bedroom window, and it lights on fire, for a minute or two, it's going to be radiating over 1,000 degrees of heat against the side of your house. If you have an old single pane window on that side of the house, it's going to shatter that, and it's going to then radiate over 1,000 degrees for long enough to ignite things inside, towels, carpet, wallpaper, what have you. So it's another great way for fire to get into your house. So look around. Especially start with any place where you've got something flammable within about 30-40 feet of the side of your house. You want to make sure that you've got tempered glass and dual pane. Dual pane, not only does it really help you with energy management, stays warm in the winter and cool in the summer, but then it's harder to break any one of the panes, and after it breaks the first pane, it still has to break the second pane, and that's much harder to do. So these are much safer in a fire-prone area. And decks. This is something that a lot of people overlook. If you've got a deck anywhere around your house, you've probably got something underneath it that'll burn, whether you put it there or it just blew there or an animal drug it in there and made a nest. You've probably got something burnable under there. Have a look. Try and make sure that the deck is not burnable, that if you need to, at least replace the posts that hold it up, and get rid of anything that's burnable underneath it. Try to keep it clean. It's very easy to overlook those, and I can show you some pictures. There are some really classic pictures where fire crews pulling up, and they can see that it's just the deck, but boy, it's going so hard that by the time they get a hose out, the house is done. So watch out for your decks. Selena, is this one yours, I think?
Yes, it is. All right. So obviously you want to make a plan in advance, right? You want to make sure that you include all the members of your household. So whether it's children actually or older adults, even guests you might have coming to stay with you, if you have some sort of Airbnb or something, or if you have an in-law unit in the back, even people that may be working on your property, it's important that everybody kind of knows what the plan is in the event of a fire. Make sure you know all ways out. Major thing I get about evacuations is what's the evacuation route? Where are we supposed to go? What's the route? We don't know what the route is because a fire is dynamic and it's changing. And if we issue an order, it's going to be depending on the circumstances in that moment. What we want you to know is that it is essential that you know all of the ways in and out of your residence, and that you've driven them. I know I have spoken to people that live up in Emerald Hills, and when I used to work up at that fire station up at Station 19, I would have residents come in and go, all right, I'm looking for this address, and we had a big map on the wall, and it kind of just looked like a bunch of noodles in the streets just dropped into a bowl. And they're like, oh, well, I live right here, but I've never been in this area, and I'm trying to get to this address. And they're like, well, I've only driven this one way in and out. And maybe you only have one way in and out. Either way, you need to know all the ways to the main thoroughfares, right? So the main roads, the artery roads, Kenyatta Road, Portola, Alpine, 280, Woodside Road, all of those main ways. How do you get there? Practice them, drive them when dark, drive them when it's unfamiliar, because you don't want to have to figure out where to go when you can't see and when you're panicked.
Well, you want to be familiar with it by the time you need to use it in an emergency. And what I tell people is, usually you find what you consider to be the fastest route in and out. And that's what you drive every day. Well, once a week, drive another way until you feel comfortable with that, such that if you had to make a run for it, you know exactly where you're going. And that's all. That's really just, don't let yourself get into the habit of not exploring.
Yeah. Also too, so when you're making your plan, right, you want to make sure you have an out-of-state contact. It's extremely important. My brother, he lives in Arizona. He's my out-of-state contact. Make sure everybody in your household knows that. And then review the whole plan regularly. Put it up somewhere where everybody sees it. If your kids attend a school that's nearby, you can go onto the FEMA Ready website, I think it's ready.gov. Is that right, Chip?
I'm not sure. I'll check it.
Put it on our thing. It's on our website. So on there, you can actually fill out a communications plan into a small card size and print it up and put it in your bag. Oh, you got to go back.
Oh, I'm on the wrong computer. Oh, hold on.
And just print it out, and then you could put it in perfect in, their backpack and yours, because you want all the information necessary in there so that, and that they can look at it regularly. Also, you want to have a go kit, right? This go kit needs to have a backup if you wear glasses. You want to have extra medication. If you have pets, you want to make sure that they're accommodated for. I have a cat, and I would like to just say she has special needs. I have to give her Zyrtec every day, and she has to have a special food. So I have a very particular go bag for her. So make sure you account for everybody in your household. And a go bag is different than what we're going to talk about a little bit later in terms of emergency supplies. A go kit is you're grabbing that and going. So it's a smaller bag. It's just meant to hold you over. It can have a thumb drive of very important documents on it, or pictures. If you have a lot of pictures that you don't want to lose, but you don't want to have to pack them in, scan all those items in advance and put them on a hard drive. Or like I've had somebody say before, put them in the cloud, right? So you don't even have to carry them with you. Just make sure you think about these situations and you do it in advance. Planning, I like to tell people that you can plan for all different situations. And in the event that something happens, it may not be what you planned for, but because you've thought of so many different scenarios, you have more tools in your toolkit to be prepared for anything that might come up. So it's the idea of planning and preparing for things that might happen that'll give you a little bit more peace of mind. And on this too, extremely important to have your gas tank filled all the time. And I'm notorious. I tend to drive with a quarter of a tank or less, which is not good considering I live in San Jose. So having that routine where you just go and fill your gas tank when it's at half a tank is really important, because you don't want to be stuck in that line waiting for gas. And this is not even just with wildfires or earthquakes. It can happen during PSPSs where you see people waiting in line forever to get gas. So it's a good habit to have as well too, parking facing the exit. And actually I'll let Chip talk about this because we have a good story pertaining to CERT.
Yeah, so we were giving a class, and we always cover this, and I never really kind of looked at the parking lot to see if people were paying attention, and it occurred to me to do this. So we tell people, just kind of get in the habit of backing in, so that when you park, so that when you get into your car, you're just going forward. You put it into drive and you leave. Because think about this, if you've got 20 cars in a small parking lot and they're all pulled in forward, and now you all need to leave at once. Well, everyone's going to be having to back up first and then move forward. And everybody has to yield to each other to do that kind of complicated two-part exit maneuver. Whereas if everyone had parked when they came in, just taken a little extra time to park, backed in, you just casually, one after the other, drive out forward. No negotiating, no worrying about it. Hey, there might be smoke in the air. Well, that's okay. I know exactly where I am because I'm facing forward already. And the next day on this one class, the very next day, um, I wasn't even thinking about it. I just happened to look out the window and everybody's backed in. I said, Selena, come here and look at this. It's working. I've never seen it work so well. This is great. Keep talking.
Also, too, you don't want to have to try backing out of anything when you're in a panic state. And so I think that's the major thing is if you're panicked, you're just not going to be thinking straight. So make everything easier for you.
No, that's the one time I'm going to back up on the rock at the end of my drive. And I know it's there, but I just got to get out of here, man. So yeah, it's a good habit to get into. Also, you find that every time you get into your car and it's already facing out and you just got to put it in drive and go, you pat yourself on the back. It just feels kind of good. It's like, yeah, that was great. I'm glad I took care of that maneuver when I was already in the car last time. It becomes a real positive experience. At least it did for me. Okay, next, do you have anything else to say here?
Nope. Next slide. Thanks.